my parents forced me to babysit my sister's kids every weekend for free, so I stopped answering calls and let their perfect family fantasy crumble completely. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one who always takes on responsibility in my family. It's like a role that was handed to me the moment I was old enough to understand what it meant. As the eldest child, the expectations were clear. I was the one who had to help my parents with everything, whether it was financial troubles, managing family issues, or making sure my younger siblings didn't mess things up. I never really had a choice in the matter. My life wasn't really my life. It was more of an ongoing sacrifice to keep the family's ship afloat. It wasn't just about taking on the mundane stuff either. Every time something went wrong, it always fell on me to fix it. My sister Lily was younger, and let's be honest, she was always the golden child. She never had to lift a finger. If there was a family problem, I was the one who had to help with finances, or babysitting, or whatever else needed doing. Meanwhile, she got to go out with friends, live her best life, and barely had any responsibilities. Every time she needed help, I was the one who'd be there, no questions asked. My parents never asked her to contribute. It was always me. And for a while, I didn't mind. In fact, I was proud of being the dependable one. I prided myself on being the responsible son, the one everyone could count on. But lately, something had started to eat at me. It was hard to ignore how everyone would just expect me to take on more and more without so much as a thank you. Sure, they told me I was doing a good job, but it never felt like enough. My sister Lily would get the praise, the compliments, even when she did nothing to deserve it. My parents never once asked her to step up. Every family dinner, every holiday gathering, they would talk about how wonderful she was, how she was doing so well in school, how she had such a bright future ahead of her. Meanwhile, I was quietly carrying the weight of everything else. It started to wear on me, but I kept pushing through. After all, what was I supposed to do? Say no, let the family fall apart. So, I did what I always did. I kept my head down, kept being the good son, but I could feel the resentment building inside of me, like a knot that wasn't going to loosen anytime soon. And the more I gave, the less I seemed to receive. I tried to convince myself that it didn't matter. I was helping my family, after all. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being used, and worse, I was being ignored in the process, and that was just the beginning. I remember the day it all started. My sister Lily called me up again asking if I could watch her kids this weekend. I knew what was coming. It was the same request I'd been getting for years, and honestly, I was getting tired of it. But I didn't say no. I couldn't. My parents had always made it clear that family comes first, and I was the one who had to be there, no matter what. No one else could fill that role. So, I'd drop everything every Saturday to babysit my niece and nephew. While Lily lived her life, I'd try to make the best of it. I'd take them to the park, make them dinner, try to keep them entertained for hours. Meanwhile, Lily would be at home, relaxing, going out with her friends, or running errands in peace. I couldn't remember the last time I had a weekend for myself. It felt like I was stuck in this endless cycle where everyone else was free to live their life. And I was the one who got stuck cleaning up everyone's mess. One Saturday, I finally snapped. I was exhausted from work, hadn't had a day off in weeks, and when I showed up to take care of the kids again, I could barely keep my eyes open. Lily didn't even ask if I was okay. She didn't notice. She just handed over her kids like it was the most normal thing in the world. She kissed her kids goodbye and left. No acknowledgement of the fact that I was sacrificing my own time, yet again. To play the role of the helper, my mom called later that day, asking if I'd taken care of everything. As if that was all I was to them. The babysitter, the problem solver, the one who could always be counted on. There was no real gratitude, no recognition, just another task to be ticked off the list. What time will you be dropping them off? My mom asked, sounding like she didn't even care what I had to go through to make it happen. I felt a pang of frustration in my chest, but I pushed it down. I couldn't say anything. It wasn't allowed. If I spoke up, I was the bad guy. If I complained, I was being selfish. And that's how I felt for years, like no one cared enough to ask how I felt or what I needed. They all just assumed I'd be there, because I always was. But this time, I was done pretending it didn't bother me. It hurt that no one ever took my needs seriously. They saw me as the reliable one, the dependable one, but it felt like I was invisible, like I wasn't allowed to have boundaries. I stared at the phone for a long time after the call ended. thinking about all the things I wanted to say but couldn't. I was stuck, trapped in this role that no one else was expected to play, and I was starting to get angry. The thing about my sister, Lily, was that she never seemed to have to lift a finger. My parents always treated her like she was this perfect, flawless daughter. Every time we had a family gathering, the conversation would inevitably turn to how wonderful she was, how effortlessly she juggled being a mother while still managing to look like she just walked out of a magazine shoot. It felt like every compliment, every ounce of praise was directed at her, and I couldn't help but feel invisible. They'd talk about her like she was some kind of angel, telling stories about how she always knew the right thing to say, how her kids were always so well behaved, how she could balance everything: work, family, her social life, without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, I was there, the one who always had to do the heavy lifting, the one who was holding everything together when no one even asked for help. I guess I didn't fit the perfect child mold they were looking for. The worst part? She didn't even seem to notice how much she got away with. She didn't have to make sacrifices like I did, but she never once thought to offer me a hand. And my parents, they never made her. They'd always brush off any of my attempts to bring up how unfair it was. "You're the eldest, you understand," they'd say. "Lily is still figuring things out. She has enough on her plate," but she never seemed to have much on her plate, did she? I would babysit her kids every weekend, while she would spend hours scrolling through social media, posting pictures of her perfect life. I'd see her out with friends, laughing, living her best life, and I couldn't help but feel like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle of giving. I remember one weekend, after a long day of babysitting, I was sitting at the kitchen table, exhausted. My mom walked in, all smiles, talking about how Lily had been telling her how amazing her life was, how happy she was with the kids, her relationship, everything. And she said it in that tone, the one that made it clear Lily could do no wrong. "And you're doing such a great job with the kids, too, honey," my mom added, like she was giving me a pat on the back for doing what I was expected to do. But the way she said it felt empty, like it was just another line she had to say, something to check off the list. It wasn't real. And there it was again, the feeling of being overlooked, of being the one who always had to make the sacrifices, while Lily got the accolades. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't the one who had the perfect family image. I wasn't the one who was living a life everyone admired. I was just the one who took care of everything so that everyone else could go on with their lives. I smiled, nodded, and pretended it didn't bother me, but deep down, it hurt more than anything, because no matter how much I gave, no one seemed to notice. No one seemed to care at first. I tried to ignore the little things, the small comments from my parents that cut deeper than they probably intended. Like when my mom casually mentioned how Lily had so much on her plate with the kids, but I never heard anything about how much I was doing. Or when my dad would say, "We really appreciate everything you're doing, son," and then immediately follow it up with, "But Lily needs help with the kids, and we can't count on her to figure it out alone." It wasn't much, but it added up. Every comment, every subtle gesture, every time I was expected to put everything aside without question, it started to feel like a weight I couldn't bear anymore. I began to notice things that bothered me more than I'd ever cared to admit before. Like when Lily would show up at family events, wearing a brand new outfit, her hair styled perfectly, while I barely had the energy to show up at all, let alone look like I had it all together. She'd look at me, flash a smile, and ask, "How's everything going, big bro?" But the way she asked it felt like an afterthought, like it was just something she was supposed to ask. She didn't care that I'd spent the entire week juggling a 50-hour work schedule and then taking care of her kids on the weekends. She didn't care that I was exhausted, that I had no time for myself. One night, my parents invited me over for dinner, and Lily came too. Of course, she showed up late, as usual, but when she walked in, she had this look on her face, a mix of exhaustion and relief-like. She was finally able to get a break from her kids for a few hours. I couldn't help but feel irritated. I wanted that break. I wanted to be able to go out and enjoy my life without worrying about everyone else's needs. But all I could do was smile and nod when she mentioned how she'd finally had some time to herself. At dinner, as my parents started talking about how lucky Lily was to have such a supportive partner and kids, I couldn't keep it in anymore. I didn't say anything out loud, but inside, I was boiling. I'd been the responsible one for so long, but all I had to show for it was this invisible role. I didn't get to live my life because I was always expected to play the part of the reliable son, the one who took care of everything. It was like I didn't have a voice, just a purpose. And honestly, I was starting to hate it. I started to pull away. I began to keep my distance more and more, especially when I could see that nothing was ever going to change. The resentment I'd buried for years started to surface, and the weight of it made everything feel harder. That night, after dinner, I went home and sat in my room, staring at the wall, trying to calm my mind. But all I could think about was how much longer I could keep pretending it didn't bother me. And the truth was, I didn't know it. It wasn't just about babysitting anymore. It was about everything. And I was so close to breaking. The breaking point came when I finally had a real shot at something for myself. A promotion at work. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was something to step up, more money, and the chance to finally live a life that wasn't defined by other people's expectations. It was my moment. I had worked hard for it, and after years of sacrifices, it felt like something I could finally call my own. But, of course, there was a catch. The promotion came with a catch. It was going to require more of my time, more responsibility. And I'd have to be available on weekends when I usually babysat Lily's kids. I didn't even have to think about it for long before my parents called me. My mom's voice was that usual mix of concern and expectation. "Son, we really need you to help with the kids this weekend," she said. It wasn't a request. It was just the way things were. The words hung in the air for a moment before she added, "Lily's been really stressed lately, and she could really use your help." I felt the pressure mounting in my chest, the weight of it squeezing out all the air in my lungs. Here it was, again, this feeling of being trapped. I couldn't say no. I couldn't put myself first. I didn't even know how to. I tried to tell my mom about the promotion, about how it would require my weekends, about how I needed time for myself to actually move forward. I tried to explain that this was something I couldn't give up, that it was important for my future. "I understand that, but Lily really needs you. She can't do this alone." I felt like my entire body went numb. There it was again. Lily couldn't do it alone, but somehow I was always expected to. It didn't matter what I was doing. It didn't matter that I had my own goals, my own ambitions. The message was clear. Lily's needs came first. Always. And that's when I realized Di was always going to be the one who sacrificed. Always going to be the one who put everything on hold for everyone else. No one ever asked me if I needed help. No one ever asked if I was okay. But Lily, Lily could never do anything wrong. She was always the golden child. The one who got all the praise, all the support. The resentment I had been pushing down for years. It exploded in that moment. I snapped. "I can't keep doing this," I finally said, my voice breaking. "I can't keep putting myself last. I can't keep pretending I'm fine when no one gives a damn about how I'm doing." There was a pause on the other end of the phone. My mom didn't say anything. She didn't even try to comfort me. "Your sister needs you, son. Please understand." And just like that, it hit me. I wasn't just tired, I was broken. I had spent so many years giving, and I had nothing left to give. I wasn't the dependable, responsible son anymore. I was just the one who always cleaned up after everyone else. The next few days, I didn't answer my phone. I didn't respond to texts. I shut myself off from everyone, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. It was time to finally stop being the family's doormat. I didn't expect things to get better immediately, but I definitely didn't expect them to get worse so quickly, either. After I stopped answering my phone, the calls didn't stop. My mom would leave voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. "Son, we need to talk. Please pick up. Your sister is really struggling. She's counting on you." But I kept ignoring them. I wasn't going to cave this time. I couldn't. Then, of course, Lily called. Her tone was sweet, but there was something about it that felt off. "Hey, big brother, I was wondering if you could watch the kids again this weekend," she asked. It wasn't a request. It was a demand hidden behind pleasantries. Mom and Dad are really pushing me, and I just need a break. I could hear the quiet manipulations in her voice. It was like she was reading from the script I'd heard 1,000 times. "I need your help. I'm struggling, but don't worry. I'll be fine if you just help me one more time." The worst part was, I could tell she wasn't even asking for help because she needed it. She was asking because it was easier for her to rely on me than actually handle things. Herself, she wasn't the one who had to sacrifice everything for the family. She wasn't the one whose life was on hold, but she knew how to play the victim card better than anyone. I hung up before she could say anything else. I didn't want to hear it. I was done being the person everyone went to when they needed something. I was done being the dependable one, the one who had to carry the weight for everyone else. The next few days felt like a strange kind of freedom. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. I didn't have anyone demanding my time, my energy, or my life. But that freedom was short-lived. It wasn't long before I heard the rumors. From my friends, from my coworkers, word had gotten out that I'd stopped answering my parents' calls, and it didn't sit well with the family. But it was the last straw. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was livid, and what I discovered next only made the fire burn hotter. I overheard my mom and dad talking one evening when I was at the house to grab some things. They were sitting in the living room, arguing about me. Why can't he just help out like he always does? My mom's voice was thick with frustration. Lily really needs him. She's under so much pressure. My dad, always the one who tried to keep the peace, sighed. I know, but maybe he's right. Maybe we've been asking too much of him. But Lily's had such a hard time, and then I heard it. The part that sent a jolt of pure anger through me. You know, sometimes I wonder if he even cares about this family. Lily never asks for anything, and she's doing everything she can to keep it together. Why does he always have to make everything about himself? Lily never asks for anything. That was the moment I realized the truth. It wasn't just about her needing help. It was about her manipulating everyone, making them feel like she was this perfect, selfless mother, when in reality, she just wanted the easy way out. And she had everyone fooled. I stood there, listening to my parents trash-talk me, while my sister played the perfect victim. I felt something snap in me like a string that had been pulled too tight, finally breaking under the weight of it all. I wasn't the one who had been selfish. I wasn't the one who had been taking advantage of others. I was done being the family's punching bag. I thought things would get easier after I decided to cut myself off from the family. But instead, it felt like the weight of everything just hit me harder. The silence in my phone was deafening. My mom's calls were replaced by texts filled with guilt. Please, just answer. Lily can't do this without you. But it wasn't just the constant pressure from them that hurt anymore. It was the overwhelming feeling of being completely alone. I had done this for years, helping them, carrying the weight, keeping everything together while I was slowly falling apart. And now, for the first time, I wasn't doing what they expected of me. I wasn't playing the part of the dependable son, and it stung. The worst part wasn't even the pressure from my parents anymore. It was the guilt. The guilt of finally saying no to my sister. The guilt of not doing everything I could for her. I started to feel like the bad guy. Even though I knew deep down I wasn't, I was just ... tired. Tired of being the one who always had to step up. Tired of being the one who always had to be the grown-up. I'd go to work every day, do my job, come home, and just sit there in my apartment, staring at the walls. I hadn't realized how much I had been relying on my family's approval until I stopped seeking it. And now that I wasn't, it was like the whole world had been flipped upside down one evening. I was at the grocery store, standing in the checkout line when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "We need to talk." That simple line hit me like a punch to the stomach. I stared at the screen. The text felt like an ultimatum, like she was trying to pull me back into the role I had spent so long trying to escape from. I knew what they were going to say. They were going to guilt-trip me, make me feel like the villain in their story. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to respond. I didn't feel like I had to make things right. I didn't owe them anything. And yet, there I was, torn between standing my ground and feeling like I was letting them down. Torn between finally doing what I needed to do for me and not wanting to be the son who turned his back on his family. I didn't text back. Instead, I put my phone in my pocket and walked out of the store. The cold air hit me as I stepped outside, and for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing, no guilt, no anger, just exhaustion. It was like I was standing on the edge of something big, but I didn't know what it was yet. I had no idea how far I was willing to go. I tried to ignore the text. I really did. But when the night came, the weight of it all hit me again. I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone, waiting for the storm to pass. But it didn't. It was like this invisible thread was pulling me back, toward my family, toward that suffocating role they had assigned me for so long. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, and I couldn't figure out which way to go. The next day, I got another call from my mom. This time, it wasn't a text. It wasn't a vague message. It was a direct plea, her voice shaky and desperate. "Son," she said, "we need you to help Lily. Please, she's struggling. We just don't know what to do without you. You're the only one who can help." I felt the tension rise in my chest. I didn't want to answer, but something inside of me snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the realization that I couldn't live like this anymore. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "I've been doing this for years. I've been doing this for you, but what about me? What about my life?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a soft sigh. "I know, son. I know you've been carrying a lot of weight. But Lily needs you. We all need you." I could hear the guilt dripping from her words. She wasn't asking anymore. She was telling me what I had to do. It was like I was still that same kid, still expected to carry everyone's burdens, while never being allowed to have my own life. I could feel the resentment building, boiling over. I had to say something. I had to stand up for myself. "I'm not doing this anymore," I finally said, my words feeling foreign in my mouth. "I'm tired, Mom, tired of being the one who sacrifices everything while everyone else gets to live their life. I need a break. I need to figure out what I want, not what you want from me. I'm sorry, but I can't keep doing this." There was silence on the other end of the line. I half expected her to yell, to beg me to change my mind, to guilt-trip me into submission. But she didn't. Instead, I heard a quiet, almost defeated sigh. "I understand," she said softly, her voice cracking just a little. I just wanted things to be different." And then the conversation ended. I stood there in my living room, staring at my phone, feeling like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But at the same time, it felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I had finally stood up for myself. I had finally chosen me. But that didn't mean it was easy. In fact, it was only the beginning of a whole new battle. I didn't know what I expected after that conversation. Maybe I thought my parents would accept my decision and move on. Maybe I hoped that I'd finally get a chance to breathe without being pulled back into the same toxic cycle. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. The first few days were quiet. No calls, no texts, just silence. I thought maybe they were giving me space, respecting my boundaries. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. It felt like I was waiting for something to explode, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a storm I knew was coming. And then, like clockwork, the storm hit. It was a Sunday afternoon when I got the first call from Lily. She didn't even let me say hello before she launched into her usual routine. "I really need you to take the kids next weekend," she said, her tone sweet, but the underlying expectation was clear. "Mom and Dad are on me about it. They said you'd help, and I really can't do it alone." The words felt like a slap in the face. After everything I'd said to my mom, after finally standing my ground, Lily was acting like nothing had changed. But this time, I wasn't going to back down. "I'm not doing it, Lily," I said firmly. "I'm not your free babysitter anymore. I've got my own life to figure out, and I can't keep being the one who does everything for you." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing like she was processing my words. Then she spoke, but it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an angry response. "You're just like them, aren't you?" she said, her voice dripping with bitterness. "You're so selfish. You've always been selfish. You think just because you've had it hard, that gives you the right to ignore your family." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't let her see how much it stung. "No, Lily. I'm not selfish. I'm tired. Tired of doing everything for everyone else while no one even notices. I've been the one holding this family together for years, but I can't do it anymore." There was another silence, but this time, it wasn't the uncomfortable kind. It was the kind that told me something had shifted, something had broken, and it wasn't just me. A few days later, I overheard a conversation between my mom and dad while I was grabbing my mail. They were sitting at the kitchen table, their voices low but clear enough for me to hear. "Why doesn't he understand?" My mom's voice was soft, almost pleading. "Lily's struggling. She needs him. Why won't he help her? He's so stubborn." My dad's response was calmer. but his frustration was obvious. He's not a kid anymore. He's grown up. He's not going to be the one we rely on forever. And then I heard at the moment that made everything in me snap. My mom's voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe we've been asking too much from him, but we don't know what to do without him. The weight of her words hit me harder than anything she had ever said before. It wasn't just about the kids or the babysitting. It wasn't even about Lily anymore. It was about them. My parents had been leaning on me for so long that they had forgotten what it was like to actually ask me what I wanted. They had forgotten I had my own life, my own dreams, my own needs, and Lily, she was just the last piece of the puzzle. The golden child who was protected from the consequences of her actions, the one who could do no wrong, while I was the one expected to clean up every mess, to hold everything together, to take on every burden. I felt my blood boil as I listened to them, but at the same time, I felt a strange sense of freedom. For the first time, I wasn't the one they were relying on, and for the first time, I realized something else. I wasn't going to let them keep dragging me down. I wasn't going to let them ruin me anymore. The perfect family image was crumbling, and I was done pretending it wasn't. It wasn't long after the conversation with my parents that I knew it was time to confront them face to face. Between us was deafening, and the weight of my decision was starting to sink in. I couldn't keep avoiding them forever, no matter how much I wanted to. I had taken a stand, but now I had to live with it. I had to deal with the fallout, no matter how uncomfortable or painful it might be. So, I called my parents and told them I was coming over. No explanation, no excuses. Just a flat statement that I needed to talk. My mom, of course, sounded concerned, and my dad didn't say much probably, because he already knew what was coming. They were both probably hoping I'd change my mind, that I'd revert to the same old routine. But I wasn't going to back down this time. When I got to their house, I could feel the tension in the air before I even stepped inside. My mom was sitting on the couch, her arms crossed, her face a little more tired than usual. My dad was pacing, in the kitchen, looking like he was about to say something, but holding back. There was a heaviness in the room, like a storm was brewing. "Son, I'm glad you came," my mom said quietly, but there was something in her voice that felt off. "We just want to talk about all this, about the way you've been acting lately." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I'd been holding in. "No," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "I'm not here to explain myself. I'm here to tell you that I'm done. Done being the one who picks up the pieces. Done being the one who does everything for everyone else." My mom's face fell, like she was hurt by the bluntness of my words. She looked at my dad for support, but he was silent. "We've asked a lot of you, I know." My dad finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "But you're the eldest. You're the one who's always been dependable." "That's the problem," I snapped. "I've always been dependable, but no one ever asks what I need. No one ever asks how I feel. I've been the one carrying this family on my back for years, but when do I get a break?" The words hung in the air, and I could feel the tension building. My parents didn't know how to respond. They had never been forced to confront the fact that they had been relying on me without ever considering what I wanted, what I needed. It had always been about them, their expectations, their demands, their idea of what family should look like. "You've always been the one who takes care of things," my mom said softly, almost apologetically. "We thought you'd always be there." I shook my head, feeling the anger rise again. "That's the problem. You never thought about what it cost me. You never thought about how much I've had to give up just to keep this family from falling apart. You never asked me what I wanted. You just assumed I'd always be there." I looked at my dad, trying to keep my voice steady. "And Lily, she doesn't get it. She doesn't see that I've been carrying everything. She doesn't see how much I've given up. You both just let her do whatever she wants, while I'm the one who picks up the pieces. I'm done." There was silence. A long, uncomfortable silence that felt like it stretched on forever. My mom looked like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. My dad just stood there, his face unreadable. Finally, my mom spoke again, her voice quiet but sincere. "I didn't realize how much we were asking of you. I'm sorry. I never meant to make you feel like you weren't enough. It wasn't an apology I expected. It wasn't the 'I'm sorry' I was waiting for, but it was enough. It was enough to make me realize that maybe, just maybe, they were starting to understand. I'm not going to be the one who sacrifices everything anymore," I said, my voice calm but firm. I'm not going to be the one who holds this family together while everyone else gets to live their life. I'm going to live mine. And if you can't accept that, then I'm okay with that. There was a long pause, but I felt like I had said what I needed to say. I wasn't the son they expected me to be, but I was the son I needed to be for myself. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I thought that once I had that conversation, things would calm down. I figured my parents would understand, maybe take some time to process, and eventually accept that I wasn't going to be their backup plan anymore. I wasn't expecting a miracle, but at least some recognition that I had a right to my own life. But what I didn't expect was the twist that came next. A few days after the confrontation, I received a message from my sister, Lily. At first, I was hesitant to even open it. The last time we'd talked, she had all but accused me of being selfish, of not caring about the family. But when I finally looked at the message, it wasn't what I expected at all. "I'm sorry," the text started. "I know I've been relying on you too much, and I've taken you for granted. I don't know how I got so caught up in my own life that I forgot what you've been doing for everyone. I just didn't know how to ask for help, and I didn't know how much you were hurting." The words hit me like a wave. At first, I couldn't even process them. Was this really her, or was I reading it wrong? Was this some kind of manipulation, some way for her to get me back into the role I'd been playing for years? I stared at the screen for a few moments, heart pounding in my chest. I had always expected her to act like she didn't care, to brush everything off like she always had. But this was different. She was acknowledging my pain. She was finally seeing what I had been going through. I took a deep breath and replied, trying not to overthink it. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. I've just needed some space to figure things out." Her response came quickly. "I get it. I'll handle things on my own from now on. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I didn't know what to feel in that moment." Part of me wanted to reach out and tell her it was okay, that I didn't want to hold a grudge. But the other part of me, the part that had been hurt so many times, felt guarded. Could I really trust her change? Could I trust that she wouldn't slip back into her old ways, expecting me to pick up the slack again? I wasn't sure, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things were starting to shift. Maybe this was the first step toward healing both for me and for the family. But there was a part of me that still felt uneasy. The golden child who had never been forced to confront her own behavior had just taken her first real step in acknowledging it. But was it enough? And as the days went by, I began to wonder if this change was real, or if it was just another attempt to keep the family image intact. My mom had apologized, but was it just because she was afraid of losing me? Was Lily truly sorry, or was she just scared of being left to handle things on her own? I didn't know the answer yet, but I was starting to see that maybe the change I needed wasn't just in Demet, was in me. A few weeks passed after that conversation with Lily, and things didn't return to the way they were before. The change, if there was any, wasn't immediate, but it was real. Slowly, I started to let go of the anger I'd been holding on to for so long, and maybe, just maybe, my family was starting to understand the value of boundaries. They were starting to see that I wasn't just the responsible one or the one who always fixed things. I was a person too with my own needs, my own life to live. I didn't get a call from my mom for a while. At first, that made me nervous. I thought maybe I'd pushed them too far. But then, I realized this silence wasn't a bad thing. It was space. Space to breathe, to think, and to finally start living the life I had put on hold for so long. But the real shift came when my mom reached out, not with a plea for help, not with a guilt, but with something different, an invitation. "We're having a family dinner this weekend," she texted me. "No pressure, but we'd love for you to come if you feel like it. Just a relaxed night. No expectations." I hadn't heard those words before. No expectations. No obligations. It was like she was acknowledging the fact that I wasn't just a means to an end for the family. I didn't have to be the one to hold it all together anymore, and it felt ... good. I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't sure if things would feel awkward, if there would be tension in the air. But when I walked into my parents' house, it was different. Lily was there, and she didn't act like she was waiting for me to babysit her kids. She wasn't trying to be the perfect mom. We just talked. Like equals. Like adults who understood each other. My mom didn't make a single comment about how much I'd helped the family or how great I was. It was like she finally understood that I didn't need to be praised for doing what I was expected to do. She just treated me like me, the person I was, not the role I had played for so many years. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. I didn't feel like I was constantly fighting for recognition. I wasn't the one holding everyone else together anymore, and that was okay. I was allowed to just be. And maybe, just maybe, my family was starting to learn something too. They were learning that love wasn't about being depended on all the time. It wasn't about sacrificing everything for others. It was about respect. It was about understanding that each person in a family had their own life to live, and that meant giving each other space to grow, to make mistakes, and to heal. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if my family would always be perfect. But what I did know was that I had finally found my voice, and no one was going to take it from me again. The real change wasn't in them. It was in me. I had learned how to set boundaries. I had learned how to say no. And that felt like the most powerful thing I'd ever done. And as I sat there with my family that night, laughing and talking like we hadn't in years, I realized something. I didn't need to be the perfect son. I didn't need to be the one who always held everything together. I was enough, just as I was. For the first time in my life, I felt free.